Talking to everyone, I have a bunch of questions over on this laptop over here. I have some coming in the Q&A, and basically what I'll do is I'll spread them around. Both the ones that we've had come in before and the ones that are coming in now tend to be more general, so anyone can answer. And so if you think you're the most appropriate person to answer, then do so. If you want to bang it back to me and make me feel uncomfortable, then do. And then I'll try and make Pete feel uncomfortable by going, I haven't got a clue what you're talking about. Pete's the content guy. But yeah, so let's take a couple from the live Q&As. So let me move this over to the other side. So this is from Anonymous, which I think is a fairly general name. And this can be for anyone. Do you find, well, I think it's probably more for Hannah, this one. Do you find clients have better buy-in for remix content than new ideas?
I can answer that if you like, but go for it, Hannah.
Oh yeah, go for it, Mark.
We might disagree. Also, obviously, like I will caveat that, you know, obviously, given such a universal answer to a question like that, there's so many variables, like the client. I am going to say no. I'm going to say the opposite, because it's really funny, but sometimes I find if an idea is too close to something that's been done, a client might complain that it doesn't feel very creative. And which is kind of annoying, because you're like, look, at some level, being creative isn't necessary. I love being creative, so I mean I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, but you're not paying us to be creative, you're paying us to get results. But yeah, I have definitely had ideas rejected because they're like, oh, but it's just the same as this other thing. And I was like, yeah, and that thing worked. But yeah, so I'm going to say no. I have found it sometimes harder to get them to accept things. If it's for, yeah, that I think there's ways you can go around it, but I'm going to go with no. Hannah, are you going to disagree?
No. I agree with you. I think it's really, really difficult because, yeah, I think often people say like, oh, we've seen definitely remakes, right? I think remixes people are often quite into. I think remixes are kind of easy to sell as well, sometimes dangerously so. Do you remember that? Do you remember me selling in that Candy Crush thing? So self-assured, like confidence, like I've never even known before. I was so certain that was going to work and I was utterly wrong. I think remixes are really easy to sell in. Remakes, no, because you get it doesn't feel creative. I feel like I've seen it before. And it is an interesting one, because I would agree with you, Mark. I don't think we're necessarily paid to be creative, actually, because what makes them sign the checks is us getting results. But yeah, it's a tough one to negotiate, for sure.
Because I mean, people will even say like ridiculous things like, oh, but we made a map before. And you're like, what? So now maps are out. Like maps have been really useful for humanity for a very long time. It's kind of how we lay out, you know, the world. But sure, no, let's not do a map because we've done one of them.
Well, I think that's a good time to bring Gisele in, because
we make maps.
Guys have done. You've done maps for years.
It's funny how we are now. We are like the maps people.
I think at one point, you guys and us guys made the same map around the same time.
Yeah, we made the same map around the same time with lots of people, to be fair. But I mean, I think in terms of that specific question, it really depends on what the client is expecting from the content. Like there are clients who actually want a remake, who you tell them, we're going to make this for you. And they're like, ooh, I saw that thing. I want it for me. And then there's also, like Mark said, the clients are going to be like, what's your job then? Like, I'm paying you for you to do something that already is there. Like, I could have done that. So I guess if you're really confident and you're trying, if you have an idea like that and you're pushing it forward to your client, and your client is pushing back because it's been done before, or because you have done something similar with them before, I guess it's the job for you is to try to show what else you're going to do with it and where else you're going to take it. And, you know, not just focus on, well, this works, so then we're going to do this other thing that is going to work as well. Because in the process of doing that, sometimes you will yourself realize that actually the client is right and that you shouldn't do the thing. So that's what I would say about that. And then maps are great. Like, come on.
Danny's just come in with what is a good price per link. So I'll ask you that one, Gisele.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Danny's come in with that. I think
I'm gonna have to go to the other room and just tell him to
yeah,
stop dropping questions.
Yeah, go in the other room and give him a slap. So this one's just come in. So with more people talking about digital PR rather than content marketing, do you see a future where PR agencies get more link savvy and clients will just go all in with them for their PR and link building needs? I think that's quite an interesting question. So
is that not sort of where we are now? Except that they're still not quite getting it on a lot of occasions. But I mean, the opportunity is there. I think also vice versa, those that are doing, like, I don't call what I do PR, but those that are doing what we are doing have been having to veer a bit more towards PR over time. And yeah, and they're getting briefs where they need to get links. And they only really need to make a small change in their head. And I've really wondered why this is so difficult for them sometimes. But they just seem to not be able to wrap their heads around selling the idea of selling the content and the asset. And they ignore it and they pitch in a story like they normally do. And so they will get coverage and the story gets covered, but they never got the link and the asset was completely removed from the pitch. But I mean, I feel like it's been converging that way slowly for a while. I'm not concerned. Some of them are getting it, lots of them aren't. It's as much an opportunity for us as it is for them.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. There still seems to be a lot of more traditional PR guys, and I'm not shitting on anyone, but that don't push for the link, you know. And a bunch of our guys, you know, if they see a piece of coverage and there's no link there, what happens? Hi, can we have a link, please?
Yeah.
You don't necessarily get that on the PR side. And what do you think, Hannah? Gisele?
I think Gisele were you just going to say something, Gisele?
No, I could, but you go.
I don't know. Like, there's a part of me that sort of thinks the reason why we started doing this was because traditional PR agencies weren't, right? Is that fair? And we never tried to do what traditional PR agencies do very well. I feel like certainly at Distilled and then later at Verve and NeoMam similarly have always done this. We've always created content which allows journalists to tell stories, which is quite different, I think, actually, from what most traditional PR looks like. And I feel like there's plenty of room for everyone. Like, it certainly doesn't trouble me. There's plenty of work out there. And yeah, I think it's just what they're doing is different, but it's still valuable, right? It's still valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, the biggest fear, if there is a fear, is that, oh yeah, links don't count, and then you created an entire agency with 200 people for it, and then what, right? It's like that's the thing. More people coming in to do what we do, and I agree with Wayne when he said, well, they wouldn't chase, and I know why they wouldn't chase, because the idea of going and telling a journalist to change something, to bother them in that way, something that actually is not crucial to the message, or is not crucial to, the brand perception, like, it doesn't fit in. It just doesn't, unless there's a complete relevant real reason why they need to put a link, because that is the point of the whole campaign, and that's where people can go in and put their details for some reason or whatever. They would never just go back, or that's something that you can see in PR and comms teams on Twitter. They hate on agencies that actually do that, because they feel like, you're just annoying the journalist. The journalist did their job. What are you doing? Like, what is this obsession with links? And then you will come, there will be people will be talking about co-citations and all that, and the brand mentions are actually a thing, and then suddenly, that's the thing. And I feel like the way that I went into it was, my first link I ever got from a journalist was me chasing a white paper being covered by Financial Times for a client that I did link building for, and their PR agency did this white paper thing, and they got everywhere. And I saw this Financial Times, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we need this link." And I didn't say anything. I just went in and asked for the link, and I gave a reasonable explanation why it made sense, because there was a lot more in the white paper than the journalist actually covered. And I got that link, and then I was like, that's it. Like, there's no reason why I couldn't do this. Why wouldn't I email these people? Like, if I'm actually offering something that there's value in it, I'm not being a horrible person, I'm not wasting their time, I'm actually, helping in some way, then why wouldn't I do that? And as a link builder, suddenly the gates opened that had been gate kept by who knows, I don't know whom. Somebody in our heads up to that point said, no, you're link builders, you go with webmasters. That's how we even wrote the articles about link building at the time. All the advice is for you and the webmasters, and then at some point it was like, well, for you and the bloggers, because influencer marketing that was born at that point, being blogger outreach or whatever, it was just the bloggers. And then nobody would say, and that's how you talk to a journalist, because that was like forbidden. But then it wasn't, and now we're where we are now. And then when the PR teams come in, who knows what's going to happen? Like 5-10 years from now, maybe actually co-citations are a thing, and actually that's the thing that people are selling. Or I create content. That's how I see it. Like, I just create content, and I create content, and I create content for the internet. I like the internet to like my content. And then if they give me links and I can get clients to pay for me to make the content that I want to make that way, then awesome.
And I think not to pick on Pete, because I know he's quite shy, and also not to pick him up, but for those who don't know, I give Pete a load of shit in PowerPoint and he makes it pretty. So thank you, Pete. But would you agree with that sort of sentiment, Pete? We kind of, as much as we love links, we make.
I think the question's the wrong way around, to be honest, because we talk about, are we worried about digital PR creeping into content marketing? Well, we've crept into digital PR in the last year. We've taken that space as well. So, we're all evolving, and we're learning how to do things that get us links and get us. We've been getting links for years, but what we probably haven't been doing enough of is the digital PR side of things, getting our clients mentioned in the dailies without that link. So I'm not worried at all. If anything, I think, we can both occupy that space, and we're moving into that space and still, acing it when it comes to link building as well. So,
I mean, I remember back when I was a lowly link builder 8-9 years ago, and I got a client onto apartment therapy. It was a shitty little blinds company, and I'd sent 150 emails that day, and then that came back. It's a nice feeling, to be fair. Right, coming back to questions. This is going off track a bit. This one's from Stephen. It says, for Wayne, why did you say there were no Americans here earlier? Hi from Chicago. Hi, Stephen. It wasn't necessarily that I didn't think there was any Americans. It's just that we're used to running this in a pub in Nottingham in the Midlands. So there you go. Well, this is an interesting one from William. I'm not sure who wants to pick this one up first. How would you react if your content gets lifted by a member of the public or a rival? Oh, things move when you're trying to read it. I'll stop. Stop sending in questions, people. How would you react if your content gets lifted by a member of the public or rival and or defaced, reused with slight changes made, and you lose the traffic to your asset? I might put this to Gisele first, because you often use Creative Commons on your actual pieces, don't you?
Yes, we do. I mean, in honesty, if this happened to you, that's horrible, because that's like beyond if it happened. We have had situations where they would take something we made and they would translate it to like Vietnamese and then cut the logo and put their logo, and then it goes viral in Vietnam. And there's nothing really we can do about it, even with the Creative Commons, because they crop the entire footer, you know. All we do is we share it around and say, look, this is super funny. Look at what happened. This is weird.
Yeah, it's happened to us a bunch of times as well. And
yeah, it's common.
The first few times it happens, you go, right, let's send emails to all these guys, and you never hear anything back. So it becomes a waste of your time.
No, I mean, we do link reclamation, and we do go after, and we do try, but the reality is that if they went through the process of just translating the whole thing and then cropping a logo and then putting the logo, obviously it's not because they want to credit you, and they would be open to crediting you at some point. So it would be a waste of energy really trying to, do that. I mean, the best thing you can do is just protect yourself. So yeah, using Creative Commons, which again, by the way, it doesn't mean anything. Like, people don't necessarily, it's like an act of good faith as a creator and as a user. And we all have to agree that you don't want to be a horrible person. So if they are literally horrible people, they're not going to care about Creative Commons either. Absolutely. So, I mean, if it really happened to you and you're in the midst of it right now, the best advice I can give you is just like, let it go and keep working and keep doing your outreach and keep finding people who have not seen that other thing. And don't get caught up in every time you see a link for something that looks like your thing, because and also, what are the odds that perhaps they did make the same thing that you made? And it happens all the time that you see your same thing, but they didn't steal it from you. They just were working on it at the same time as you were.
We've seen it definitely where we've put something out and then they're so close to what we did that they definitely they just definitely stole it. I won't go into that because I'll put this one to Hannah and Mark, whoever wants to pick it up first. Usually it's Mark, always jumps in first.
Off of a sample of one.
So here you go, Mark. I'll put this one to you first. Do you take the brand and their audience into consideration when you create content? And if so, where do you get this audience information from?
Interesting question.
Yeah, that's why I put it to you.
Do I take the brand and audience into? Yes, definitely, more and more so. Some of the historic pieces you might have seen are from our portfolio. We probably considered that a lot less. We were kind of still coming from an old school link building background, and I remember just telling people, look, it doesn't matter. But more and more, particularly this is what I mean by verging with PR. You got to do something that makes sense. It's too visible now. We used to be able to build links from articles and directories and whatever, but now this is such a visible part of their brand that you don't want to be confusing the message. So yes, I very much take their brand into consideration. Their brand is easier to take into consideration than their audience. They often don't have great information about their audience, but I usually use it as starting points for researching the idea. So I might say, okay, who is your audience? And if they have any information about where they are in terms of publications they're reading. If they don't have that, we can just figure out where are people that are interested in this topic, and with those types of audience descriptions, what are they reading? SparkToro is a really interesting tool for that these days around the topic side of things. So yeah, I kind of try to use it to hone in on what are they talking about, or where are they and what are they talking about there. And then from there, I just kind of use, that just kind of gives me a frame for where I'm going to come up with ideas, because I know the topic area, I know where the audience is, and then I'm looking to see what they're talking about. And I'll do similar things about the brand and the topics that they talk about as well. I could go on at length, but I'll try and keep it short and let everyone else have a shot.
To be honest, I've been impressed with SparkToro. I didn't hold much up for it at the start. I thought I couldn't quite figure where Rand was going with that, but I actually think it's turning into quite an interesting tool. What's your thoughts on that, Hannah?
So I mean, yeah, like Mark, I definitely take the brand and their target audience into consideration, and often it's the jumping off point. I would agree with Mark that often the company I'm working for won't necessarily know a whole heap about their audience concretely. There's a couple of things that I like to do to kind of just circumvent that. So I just say, tell me 5 publications where you want coverage. And then I just start there. So it's like, I've got the 5 publications where they want coverage. And those 5 publications will like inevitably be places where their audience, are likely to be reading articles. So I just kind of go from there. There's also a tool we used to use at Distilled called Demographics Pro, which basically you could, it only really works reliably if you've got a reasonably decent sized Twitter audience. I haven't used it for an awful long time. Bear in mind, I feel like I should say that. But basically, if your client's got a reasonable sized Twitter audience, then basically what it'll do, Demographics Pro, you can just pay for a report from them, and it'll break down kind of a whole bunch of demographics about the audience, so who's following that brand, and also about the stuff that they like, which publications they most frequently share content from. Like it's pretty cool, and it didn't. I'm really worried now it's really expensive. It used to cost like a couple of $100 to run a report, and it was super useful, wasn't it?
Yeah, and couldn't you also, Hannah, like if they like, I think, if they were a startup and they don't have a big audience, but they have a bigger competitor, they could just do it off them, right?
Yeah, and we did do that plenty of times. So yeah, if they have a small audience, just run Demographics Pro on their competitor instead.
Yeah.
Cool. A quick shout out to whoever from our side is dismissing and marking questions as answered, because it's just made my screen a lot easier to read. We'll go to one of the ones that. Oh, is it Pete?
It's
Thank
me.
you, Pete.
Yeah.
I knew I'd employed you for 5 years for something.
Thanks.
You're welcome, mate. So one from, this was originally set for Pete, but I'm going to open this to everyone. So this came in on the form. How do you get yourself motivated to create content for brands you perhaps don't have a connection with?
I'll answer that.
Got them.
Well, for me, it's about chunking up. Which,
you stole
if you don't know what
we
that
stole
means,
that off Gisele, by the way.
I think it was Danny more than me, to be honest.
Was that Danny one? Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I think I stole it off you, Wayne, actually. So
basically, it's coming to light that I stole everything I know off these 3 guys that sat in front of me.
I think that's how it works, isn't it, mate?
You know that Hannah and I don't really need credit for the Made to Stick book. You can just credit the guys that wrote it.
But you introduced me to it, so anyway, carry on, Pete. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, if your client sells cardboard boxes, as one of our clients does, or I don't know, carpets or dog bowls or something like that, you have to find something engaging that isn't that, but is related to that. So the method of chunking up is to think, well, what are associated with that? So it's the pets would be the dog bowl stuff, the cardboard boxes. What fun things can you do with cardboard boxes? How can you make an exciting story? How can you make exciting content related to boring shit, basically? So to get motivated is to chunk up. You have to chunk up. You can't just we have done exciting, engaging content about doors, I think, in the past. And we still try, I believe, with some of our clients.
Dude, we're in year 8 of creating exciting content for doors.
But more often than not, we try and chunk up to the home or the family or interior design or something like that. So you have to chunk up. So that's how you get motivated, is by don't take it too literally. Look for opportunities that are more exciting than the very basic level of what your client sells.
Anyone else want to chip in on that one?
Go Hannah. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I just go to those 5 sites. Like, they've told me the 5 sites or 10 sites where they want coverage. I go and see what's being written about there and find a way for them to legitimately play there. And it certainly for me, I find it's then easier to sell in an idea, because you're not kind of having to explain why you've chunked up or whatever. You're just going, hey, you said you wanted coverage here. Here's why I'm suggesting that you make this thing. So it kind of avoids some of those, sometimes, not all the time, but it helps to avoid some of those awkward conversations. When your client who makes doors is like, why isn't this about doors?
We're talking doors.
Yeah, it kind of depends if there's an audience or not, right? Like, because I was going to give an example, and I will in a second, about health and safety officers, which there was an audience for, right? These people do this day in, day out, but maybe not one I can resonate with, and I'll explain a bit about how I did that. But Pete, with your example, it's like there isn't an audience for cardboard boxes. Like that's absurd. So it's like, which audience are we going to speak to? And I guess that's chunking up to, is it parenting? Is it something about the home? Whatever it is.
House need cardboard boxes.
Yeah. The only challenge with that is like we're not a permanent audience for that. Well, I guess some people are. Some people but
I've got a lot of cardboard boxes, babe.
Yeah.
I love cardboard.
Just that shop.
Cardboard is my favorite. That's my hobby. Cardboard is my life.
Well, you've got an audience then.
Audience one.
The other flip to that might be where there is an audience, but you just don't resonate with it, right? And that can be like I've heard people say that about gaming. They're just not into gaming, but it's a popular audience. Or take something dry like I was saying about the health and safety officers. For that, I think you just need to spend longer in their world. Like, go and find out where I got into these private LinkedIn groups for health and safety officers and saw what they were talking about. And whilst I was consuming their stuff, I'm trying to think from the perspective of, what is it they care about here? Not coming in thinking about if you come in thinking about it from your own perspective, you go, I don't care, this isn't interesting. But your job is to try and understand them, just like you would do, just like an advertising agency does with a focus group. The internet is your focus group. What do they care about? And once you've been in it long enough, you begin to understand. Like, I began to understand that these guys are like, look, I know you think we're the fun police and just bureaucrats and red tape. We are genuinely trying to stop you injuring yourself and dying. That is our job, and you won't let us do it. And you began to understand the emotion and the frustration. Like, they're trying to do a good job, and you won't let us because you just think we're boring. And there was quite a lot, like, you began to understand and appreciate where they're coming from.
A couple more coming in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read this one out, and then I'm going to go and fetch a beer. So I'm going to let you guys run with it and decide who's going to answer this one and how. Do you find it easier to create content with brands you work with for a long time, or creating for brands for the first time?
Yeah, interesting. I think it's easy to get comfortable. It's definitely easy to get comfortable.
While you talk.
So you can get comfortable, and but great content, as I think Hannah very well put together in a presentation. Great content rarely lies that way when you get comfortable. But I think knowing a client well allows you to take greater risks, or maybe risks is the wrong word, but sort of do some more exciting content once they have your trust. So for me, I like the relationship of building up I like building up a relationship with a client, definitely. It's always very scary with a new client, but that also has its own benefits as well, because they're definitely more excited about your ideas as well. So you sort of get a bit of a free pass on that one as well. So both, I think both is the answer.
Yeah, I think obviously by definition, if you've been working with them for a long time, then you obviously have found the groove and you have been doing good stuff for them. So that's easier than necessarily starting out. But I guess the question is, when you've been with them a long time, I remember going into do a workshop with the guys at confused.com, and they were just like, Mark, you've got to understand, we've all worked here for about 6 years. We have, like, you know, we've thought of everything. Just give us a new perspective, please. And I was like, okay, actually, and as an agency, I've never experienced that, not to that extent, having their only topic for 6 years. So, but like, we have worked with clients for a long time, like probably around 4 or 5 years is probably the longest, 4-ish. And yeah, you can get a little too comfortable, and obviously you've got to try and find something original and something interesting, and sometimes going into a new area does raise your curiosity more because it's new and it's fresh, and then that can get you going. But I guess on the flip side, if it's an area you're familiar with, try and figure out where else you haven't gone. Like, okay, maybe I've never explored Reddit. Maybe sometimes I'll go like, what actually real exhibitions are there? What books do people write? Just go anywhere to think, how can I spark something? How can I go somewhere I haven't been to try and spark something? Oh,
baby in the room.
I was just send Danny back because I was going to ask a NeoMam question. I'll bypass that one, seeing as Giselle's putting the little into bed. All right. Okay. This is an interesting one because it's something we were shy about for a long time, but not so much now. As agencies or freelancers, what are your feelings about promoting yourself over Twitter and LinkedIn, sharing coverage, etc.? Is it useful for leads? Which I think there's then a bigger question there of, you know, back in the olden days, I'm pretty sure none of us shared too much of our stuff because we were worried that the other agency would figure out what we were doing. I don't know if that was just me being paranoid and 8-9 years ago or whatever, but I mean, there's definitely a sense of oversharing on.
I have an interesting perspective on this in the moment, just because if I dived in first again, Hannah, do you want to come in first? It looks like Giselle's kind of busy, but
yeah. So what do I think about it? Like, I don't have a strong opinion. Like, people, like, you do you, you know, ultimately you do you. I think, in fairness, a lot of the times that people do share a piece that they've made, or they share some coverage that they've managed to secure, the reason they share it is pure. Like, they're just really excited. They're not trying to promote themselves. They're not trying to sell their agency or like try and shill for more work. They're just super excited because this stuff is really hard. This stuff is so hard. And if anything, like, one of the things that troubles me a bit is kind of how sometimes I think that there's a tendency to be a bit judgy about it and be a bit like, oh, you're just selling that to try and get business. Does it work? And it's like, maybe someone's just selling it, you know, sharing it because they were happy. Like, and there is room for all of us. Like, the fact that somebody else's piece got coverage doesn't mean that your piece won't necessarily. Do you know what I mean? So I do think, though, there is a dark side to the sharing. And the dark side to the sharing is that it skews people's perception of reality. So it can feel, if you're sitting on the other end of the computer screen, that like everybody's succeeding all the time and you feel like maybe you're not. And of course, the problem is that we just share our successes. And that is something I do think that we need to consider. But I do think most of the time people are just sharing stuff because they're overjoyed and proud of their work.
I agree with that. I agree with that, Hannah. And something which kind of fits with my style. Something that I've thought about doing in the past is only sharing the ones that have done shit.
That'd be easy enough.
I'd spend all my day on Twitter and LinkedIn, wouldn't I, Pete?
You would.
But no, I'd obviously I'm being slightly flippant there, but I genuinely, I don't think there's enough sharing of things that go wrong, or people are always happy to share when things have gone right. But you know, I've done presentations in the past where I've gone, this piece did shit, this piece did shit.
I think that, like,
my SEO was shit on this one.
You've got to be careful with that though. Like, so I also share things which have not gone well, and I also share failure, but I can't share everything that's failed because
we wouldn't have time, would we?
Well, one
jobs
time, sure, but also it can lead to very difficult conversations with clients, right? Like, it's one thing to fail and explain that to a client, like that's the hard enough conversation. I could imagine in the past the client would have had some very, very, very serious conversations about the fact that I'd not just failed, but I was then like shouting about how crap I was on Twitter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, there's more stuff at stake here. Like, I think, and I do suspect that maybe the answer is, you know, probably social media that's a bit less public, right? I think that people are more open about this stuff in like Slack communities and kind of more private communities where, you know, you can be a bit more open. But again, I don't think we should come down too hard on people for not sharing failure, because that can be really hard to do as well. Like, they may literally not be able to, they may not be allowed to, because the agency they work for doesn't allow it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. When I was probably didn't make it obvious. When I've done it, it's either been slightly anonymized or in a you know, where it's not like this. But
I think the lack is, whether it's success or failure, the thing that bugs me is the lack of value to me. Oh, we've just got this link. Okay, what value is that to me? Like, share the piece of content once because you're like, cool, I want to see it. That's cool. But like, otherwise, it's like, give me some little nugget of insight, just something that is valuable to me, and I think you'll find a lot more people engaged with your stuff. You know, here's how we angled this bit, it wasn't working, but we got this, or here's how we sent the press release, and this is like, give me something valuable.
It's that element of context, isn't it? Because sharing, we got this thing, okay, what's the context? How did you get there? What was the process? Was it easy? Was it hard? How many people were involved? You know, you don't need all those things. But
just to answer the question though, if the question is, does sharing links get you leads, right? In my personal experience, no, it doesn't. Not necessarily. I never got somebody saying, oh, I saw you share this thing, I want that thing, and here's my money. But perhaps over time, you know, I think as we have been doing this for a long time, and it got to a point where people have seen our work enough to know that we are, we're kind of consistent, I guess. Oh no, he's not
making better points than you, Gisele.
Yeah, he doesn't agree.
Link melding's not his favorite nighttime story.
No, not really. Should have been better.
I
told you he was more of a social guy.
I'm done. I'm gonna bring it to Danny.
No worries.
Yeah. I've been a lot more active in social in the last few months than I have been in a long time. On Twitter particularly, and yeah, it's a funny place. I've been surprised how much people just seem to big themselves up and forget the value to whoever is reading it. But I have found that it does bring in more leads. I don't have great tracking on this, but my gut sense is I'm getting more leads. And it's not from any one activity, actually. I think it's just from a little bit of consistent presence. You're just top of mind, and you remind them, and they're a bit like, you know what, we kind of have always thought about getting in touch with Mark. Maybe we should, or maybe we do need some training, because that's what I sell. Like, I sell training. Like, yeah, maybe we should get in touch. I feel like I've got more leads. I don't have a very clever data tracking spreadsheet like you guys. It's all done on a hunch. But I think just being present keeps you in people's minds. You know, that was essentially what old school marketing was trying to do, right? The old 7 touch points, stay top of mind, yada yada. That still applies.
Yes, it still applies. It's just that you have to be probably more places than you used to have to be.
I don't know. I think you can just not be on LinkedIn and you'll probably be fine.
Well,
like your mental health will be better anyway.
I think nowadays no one needs to be on LinkedIn. It's a massive pull.
You know what? Like, I shouldn't even say that because I get leads through LinkedIn.
I really like LinkedIn.
Huh?
I think everyone else just gets
yes.
just
do you want me to tell you why?
Opportunities
Why?
off LinkedIn.
Because it's so full of rubbish. I think you've got more chance to stand out. And I also think that the pace is slower. You know, when you post something on Twitter, the replies are over within an hour or so. You can get replies for over a week on something on LinkedIn.
That's
and I
really
kind of like that because I don't
Yeah.
want to be going back to Twitter all the time to see what's going on. I like that it's just a bit of a slower pace, but it builds momentum. Yeah.
No. It's the way I've not really considered that.
Neither have I. Yeah, it's good. Good advice, that. Interesting.
I'm going to write that down up. Get myself some business.
Well, I think you'll find I get most of our business off TikTok now.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
With you dancing.
Yeah, just me dancing in a corner on my own. This one's quite a long one, but potentially interesting. So this is from VK. How come?
Is it our VK? How do we know?
VK.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Of
cool.
course it is. How many VKs do you know?
Yeah.
Well, I only know one, but there could be more.
I can't think who it is.
I don't know any VKs.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay, it's our guy. Yeah.
How come so much of content marketing digital PR is data driven, as in a lot of content assets are essentially data visualizations and infographics, as evidenced by NeoMam's design driven famous pieces. You don't always need data viz to create a successful piece of content. So how come so much of the industry is relying on it?
Well, surely that requires data as well.
Because of you, VK. Because of you. So for context, VK was the data journalist that worked with Hannah and I at Distilled. And has he been doing work with you, Gisele?
Works for NeoMam, yeah.
So there you go, because you've infiltrated the entire industry, and no matter who you work with, it's VK doing everything. So yeah, because
so is VK he's only not worked with us.
Yeah, you should get in touch with him. He's
VK.
really busy though.
No. I'll go and steal him from NeoMam.
He's like he is
good luck.
Amazing.
So genuine answer. Sorry, Pete, you were going to answer it genuinely.
I didn't know it was an inside job.
I don't know how you do any content without data.
I do have an inside job question somewhere. Let me find it. It made me laugh. Let me find this one.
So in terms of the data driven, so PR is the flip side of journalism, right? And journalists need to report on facts, and data makes it factual. The only other way to make it factual is essentially to create an event. You know, so in old school PR, you either have a survey or you have an event, whether that's a product launch, some kind of real event you're running, whether it's a stunt. You have to create something that happened so the journalist can report on a fact. Otherwise, you can report on the state of something like they do at the State of the Union, which, by the way, is the origin of the word statistics. Same origin. What is the state of play? You analyze the statistics and you reveal the facts. So I would say that's why it is. And also probably because we find something that worked and we're just going to all jump on board. But I actually see a lot because a lot of agencies are calling themselves digital PR now. I am seeing more stunts in the sort of SEO side of things. I'm not getting on board because it's not really my thing. I'm going to stick to what I know, but I would say that's why so many of them are data.
Yeah, we're more data anyway, aren't we, Pete? We had a question. This is a very obscure reference from someone. I've no idea who it's. I'm going to mention it. It's not a real question. This is not to answer. But this came from Christy Melry, who works in a London bank, which is a reference to a 1970s book about someone who did double entries on and then took it into the real world, who asked content is dead, what is next? I've no idea who sent that one in.
I didn't understand that question.
Oh, yeah, precisely. All of you look up Christy Melry and double entry. It's not as rude as it sounds. It was a book and then a film. Someone's played a joke on me, I think. Their question was content is dead, what is next?
All right.
Real question. How how many people are typically involved in your ideation process for a piece of content?
One, because I'm an arrogant asshole.
Well, not so much. No, but genuinely, it's because we freelance, right? Like,
well,
we don't have that luxury. So yeah, one, yeah.
Does that cause problems? Do you, as freelancers, do you wish you had more, or do you rely on, say, I know you guys talk to each other, Mark and Hannah. Do you rely? I won't bother either, to be honest. But yeah, do you rely on other freelancers to bounce anything off, or are you just working on your own?
Cool.
I mean, it depends on the nature of the engagement, right? Like, there's definitely been times in the past 12 months where I've found it more difficult, but I think that's mainly because there's more important stuff going on in the news cycle, and so like psychologically I found it pretty difficult to reconcile, you know, the fun things, in inverted commas, fun/interesting things I'm trying to come up with, when there's more important things I feel like I should be worrying about and caring about. So I think it's not so much that, or certainly for me, it's like there's definitely times where I've missed having somebody else to bounce our ideas off, of course. But I think probably the thing that's harder is it's the, you know, like the very solitary nature of freelance work sometimes, and particularly in the last 12 months it's been spectacularly solitary. But no, I kind of think to kind of maybe just to flip back, because this is really depressing, to flip back to the question about how many people in an ideation team. When I was at Verve and I headed up the creative team at Verve, I typically used to put no more than 3 people on a round of ideation, because of at a certain point, if you have 10 people on something, then they're each only 10% responsible, and it's not enough responsibility that anybody like really feels like they own it. So for me, like a magic number was 3, but I could well believe that may not be optimal elsewhere.
I think 3 is a really nice number. I was going to say 2 or 3, but because we used to put like 5 or 6 on it, and you used to find that like at least half of them just aren't that committed to it. And if you all get in a room with 6, it's too much. Because I mean, let's say you're in a room for an hour, like at most you're each speaking 10 minutes. Like it's not that. And everyone, particularly during a conversation about an idea, maybe everyone will want to make sure their voice is heard, but it kind of kills the energy of the conversation. Like, I think 3 is good. 3 is probably the minimum number you need for multiple perspectives.
Yeah, what I'd say there is De La Soul wrote a song called 3 is the Magic Number. There were 3 of them. They only ever released 3 good albums. And I think they've only got 3 albums available on Spotify.
3 is the Magic Number was a cover version though, mate.
Bob Dobra, old jazz song.
There you go. So, you know, you thought you were coming for a nice digital content marketing meetup, and instead you found out bizarre things. Which 1986 Daisy Age hip hop song sampled a 1956, I think, jazz song, which was essentially to teach kids how to do multiplication. I have knowledge. My knowledge is I don't know anything about anything in the real world, but I know shit about that sort of stuff.
Their most recent, I don't know if it's the most recent, but one of the most recent albums is really good. And the Anonymous Nobody, 2016.
Yeah, it was good.
Really good album.
And that was available to stream earlier. But interestingly, their earlier albums, suddenly after 10 years of not being able to stream, you could.
Zell, ideation team.
Yeah.
How many people? Put on?
Oh yeah, we got derailed. Pete, how many do we have? We have about 312 people on each, don't we?
Another creative and the account manager is the practical answer. I want another creative to bounce ideas off, and somebody who knows the account.
Nice.
So 3, maybe 4. You know, if I can get Wayne or something or whatever. You know, if I can drag someone who's got experience as well. Maybe get 4.
Yeah, so we start with 1, then we're 3, then we're 8. So the first, for generating concepts, we work alone. And then the accounts get assigned to people based on their interest, really, and what they want to explore. And then they present their concepts, and then we're 3 more senior people that go in and we give feedback on those concepts, and we would take some of them, and if they're ready, we would take them as they are, or we would work on them, because sometimes they just need a little bit more work, or sometimes they just become ideas they're completely different because we just got in the conversation. And then once we have the concepts we feel like we're happy with, then it's a team of 8 of us that go in and just try to find what's wrong with it, really, and give feedback to either decide that it's not a good concept or just refine it even further. So I guess we're 1, 3, and 8.
Cool. Right, we'll pick a couple more questions out, and then we'll probably wrap it up. This one's quite open-ended, and probably involves a little bit of description. But what's your favourite piece of content that you've created that's gone on to not garner any coverage? I assume by any coverage it means not much. I don't think they're talking about absolutely nothing. But yeah. I mean, I think me and Peter probably got a few there. But,
I know one, definitely. It was that piece that we did about music inspired by certain cities around the world. So like Vienna by Queen, where we took the what do you call it? The sound wave.
Yeah.
And built the city skyline with it.
Wow.
Did fuck all. Nothing.
Yeah,
not a thing.
It did nothing, did it? It
not
looked
a
beautiful.
thing. And it was beautiful. Yeah, Lindsay, I think, is still in the chat. Is still watching. She made a beautiful job of it. We researched it. We put it through. We got the proper sound wave from the chorus, and nothing. Not a thing.
And the sound waves looked like the cityscapes. It was.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Nice.
I think
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Just didn't hit it. It was really nice.
Yeah. Maybe not a story.
I don't know if that was
just
outreach or not enough. I don't know if it was because the songs themselves didn't have enough gravity by themselves. So like, although Vienna by Queen, we all know it's not Queen's most well-known song, is it? Maybe it just didn't have enough nostalgia.
It's not by Queen, is it?
Yeah, no. Barcelona's the Queen one.
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
I think that's why it didn't do anything, because you got the wrong.
Yeah, probably that's why I did wrong. Yeah, because I fucked up on that one. But yeah, you know what I mean. I just don't think there were big enough songs about cities. Maybe they weren't nostalgic enough. They didn't inspire enough emotion. But they looked great, and it should have worked. It ticked all the boxes, but just didn't land. Don't know. Still don't know why it didn't land.
I'm seeing if I can find one to share with that.
Is this? I've got 2 answers. This is recorded. Right? So does this get published later? Because there's different answer depending on the answer to that question.
It's been recorded. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, John's recording them, but we can bleep you out, mate.
No, it's fine. I'll tell you the other answer. All right. Mine was like, I probably saw the same one.
No, hold up.
Yeah, you go.
Let me share my screen. I can share it without sharing who the
I would say one thing. Sorry, I have to go. Like,
no
there's
worries.
so much I can be away from the baby and the baby crying and me being like, it's fine, it's
no
fine.
Worries.
Cool. So thank you for having me.
For joining us.
Good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later. Thank you. Speak soon. Can you see my screen at the moment? I assume everyone else can. So yeah, we did these. So this one's Barcelona by Freddie Mercury and Montserrat Caballé. And there you go. There's London by Lily Allen, and they're their actual sound waves. And we actually figured out how to get the places. Oh, there we go. That's the brief.
Yeah, I just
but
don't
there you
think the
go.
songs
So-
were big enough. I just don't think the songs were, they didn't resonate. I don't think.
I
We didn't
feel
have
like
any that-
it might suffer from just being, that the first question you've got on your document about can you really quickly explain what it is? I think
that's
this one's
what it
just a
was.
little bit tricky. It's like, well, it's the sine
Yeah.
waves and it's the city, and it's like, oh, it just needs to be that little bit quicker to get, I think.
Getting that subject line down, isn't it? Getting that subject line down in the email
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the elevator pitch, which I think you've talked about before, Hannah, and not the elevator pitch, but more the Jaws thing.
Jaws in space.
Jaws in space. Yeah. Anyway, Mark, your thing that failed.
Man, it's the same one I've been talking about forever, but I think it is just the one that haunted me, where I analyzed and visualized, or we analyzed and visualized the scores from all the Six Nation games over God knows how many years. And I thought I'd invented like this really cool way to show the way the score changed over time. So you could really see, just over time, you could see the shape of the game.
I thought I remember this one.
It was really nice. I thought it was an interesting way to see the game, but realistically, it was like we brought this out. Okay, Six Nations is about to start, and we're bringing out this thing about all the historic scores. And I think rugby fans, like sports fans, are like, I don't give a crap, because it's particularly being Scottish. It's like, I know we suck, but this year is going to be different, And like I think that's kind of what they think. It's just like I don't care. I don't want to know.
Yeah,
about
see, I don't think it's a sports fan problem. I think it's a sports journalist problem.
Yeah, true.
They don't write those stories. Like they write about injuries. They write about who's fit. They write about it's actually like people make huge mistakes with sports journalists. Sports journalists look a lot like entertainment journalists. They basically write match reports. Who's fit, who's not, transfer news. There's very little space for any in-depth, and the only people who do in-depth kind of do it themselves.
They've got a constant flow of hard news. You're not going to cut through. That's true. That's true.
Space to it, and it's exactly the same with entertainment journalists. Like they're trying to produce 15 articles a day. Like, of course it's not too surprising when you stop and think about that. It's not too surprising that they don't really care about this thing I made about on-screen death counts. I mean, it's actually surprising when they do, not when they don't, right? Like, they've got enough to do.
Do you know one thing? I put through all the old URLs. This thing's not live anymore, but I put through all the old URLs for pieces we made to find out links in social account recently.
Yeah.
And even though that URL is not live, and I haven't been able to find any insight on this, it has 450,000 Facebook engagements, and all the other data on all the other pieces I put through is accurate. And I'm like, I don't know. I've got no insight. Like, does anyone know how to find out how much something, like where something's been shared on Facebook? I don't
how to do that.
So I don't know how to. I don't know if I believe it, but I'm just absolutely fascinated.
The rugby piece. The rugby.
I'm sure we figured out a way of doing it years ago.
Yeah,
but I can't remember what it was though. Shit, I can't remember.
Did this kick off a massive debate at some point? I've no idea. I've no idea.
You can't work out where it's come from. I'm sure we figured a way out, a way of figuring it out. But anyway, I'll tell you what, because it's we've been going quite a while now.
When we started, I was 22. I am 42. That bit's true, but the 22 bit.
I'm trying to find a good question to finish on, and I think I've found one. So apologies for the attendees that are still left. There is still some.
Clinging on for dear life.
I think we're down a third.
We've still got 25 or something. So people are still interested in our jibber jabber. But I think we should wrap it up soon. So I've got quite a general one that's interesting that I think will be good to finish on. Came from Lucinda. What do you think should be the driving force behind content? That's a good one.
I don't know if I understand it. I don't know if I understand it. What do you mean? How do you interpret that?
How do you interpret that? I think I think what she's getting at there is not what's the point, but why should you do it? What's the benefit for?
Isn't it links? Isn't it links? I think we covered that.
Links is not always the answer, Pete.
No,
links
it's
is not always the answer.
Yeah.
And I think maybe
is it a personal thing? Are we talking personal here? Why do we do it? Are we talking
well,
clients?
I tell you what, this
What
is
does the
so
client want?
open-ended. You can answer it however you want. Is it links? Is it why do you do it?
What does the client want out of it? What's the client? What's the client asked for? Have they asked for featuring in a certain publication? Do they want 50 links? Do they want links of a certain authority? Do they just want a feature? Do they want the digital PR, as a lot of clients do now? It depends, doesn't it? It's very open-ended. What is the driving force? What the client wants.
And I guess Hannah and Mark don't work on this kind of stuff as much as we do, because we produce content that's not for links. It's stuff that they may need to share internally as a company. There's a bunch of content that we make that is not related to what we've been talking about tonight. It's a good point. I thought it was so
money, innit? It's got to be money. If it's from a business, it's got to be money eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. And that comes down to the kind of thing that I was talking about earlier with my presentation. Pete, I don't know what you guys did at university, but obviously Pete's a designer. I did foundation art. I did sculpture at university before getting chucked out. So a lot of the guys at Boom come from an art background. They don't come from a marketing background. We're more predominantly art based, whether they're in SEO or design. PPC guys don't tend to come necessarily from an art background, but anyone in the the more creative side, a lot of our guys came from an art background.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously a business does things to make money, right? But I think the interesting thing is when digital marketing arrived, whenever that was, obviously it was an evolution as opposed to an arrival, but with SEO and analytics and everything, it was like there was this imagination, I feel, that there was this holy grail that you would just be able to track everything, and you could be super efficient with your spending. And even with something like SEO, which is quite trackable to an extent, there's always like this bit where you can't actually, there's a lot of times you can't literally just tie this to this and go, this is exactly what worked and this is why. And I think that's part of the challenge. And I guess the driving force behind it, it's always going to be money to some extent, but I'd also say that we're all humans, and business decisions are made for a combination of rational and irrational reasons. And I think a lot of people probably do it for more irrational reasons than rational ones. Like they'll do it because they see other people doing it. They'll do it because they're worried they're going to fall behind if they don't. They'll do it for vanity reasons, for getting stuff out there that gets attention. They'll do it for there's a whole mixture of things that is driving it. So it's useful to at least be aware of that. I've certainly been in companies where they're looking at their competitor, but I've also been in at their competitor and they're looking at them. And I'm like, is there anything else driving this except this circular thing where you're both looking at each other going, well, they're doing it, so we should do it. And it's just going round and round. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously got to come down to money. I mean, almost like I've seen about Twitter, like my activity on social and stuff recently, podcasting, blogging and stuff has driven leads. But even then I couldn't pinpoint it exactly where it's come from. But
it's the old Phoebe from Friends quote, isn't there? There's nothing that's altruistic. There is no true altruistic act. At the end of the day, where you guys freelance, run a business, you need to make money. Boom needs to make money. Our clients need to make money. What we do with content is more creatively based, is more art based. But like I was talking about earlier, we need to make money. Client needs to make money, otherwise we're on the pile and next agency comes in. So
reverse side from the audience, I mean, it's entertainment, isn't it? Like even news is entertainment, right? It's just something. Twitter, LinkedIn, it could be useful, but it's just something to consume. And enjoy for a second, bit of a distraction.
Yeah, there's a lovely way to put it. The things we create are consumed for 1 second and then forgotten. But we get the links and we're happy, and then our clients make more money, so they're happy, and then we make more money because they're making more money.
I think, like, I don't know if you remember this deck. I'm choosing to interpret the question as because to ask me what drives me to create.
Yeah. No, that's the.
And I don't know if you remember the deck, Mark, but there was a deck I don't even know when, probably in 2010 or something ridiculous, and there was a slide in there about how what we're trying to do is effectively like capture users' heartbeats for a second or two, like just for a second or two, and hopefully like it's a good experience for them. Because like one of the things that I like, certainly something that Mark and I spoke a lot about when we were at Distilled, and something I've spoken about at every agency I've ever been to, like if you want, you can get coverage and be a really fucking shitty human, like a really shitty human. There is a way to just create polemic awfulness and you will get coverage, but you can also choose not to do that. Like you can choose to try and leave the internet slightly better than the way you found it. And like that's the thing for me. Like there's been lots and lots of times over the years where I've kind of realized that there's a campaign I could make which would definitely get links and would definitely get results, but I've chosen not to make it because I thought that would, like, nobody needs that. Nobody needs more of that in their lives. And so yeah, so that's kind of what I guess, like, what drives me. Try and leave it.
Well, you know what? I think that is probably the best and most serendipitous way that we can finish this evening, that we all want to leave the internet in a better place than we found it. I genuinely think, and it's not because I need a piss at all. I genuinely think that is a really positive way to leave it. Ian, are you still here, or have you gone to bed?
I'm still here. I can't actually move anymore because I'm now so hungry and thirsty that I am weakly draped in my chair.
That seems like the perfect. Hannah's. She's going to leave. I think she's got the parting words there on that one. I think that was a nice way to come back round to why we do what we do. So I think that's a fitting way to end. And I'm glad that random question that we couldn't figure out what it actually meant or how we should answer it ended up with that.
Nice. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. Hannah from Worderist and Mark from Content Hubble, sorry. Gisele, who's no longer here from that sounded horrible, has gone to look after her son from NeoMam, and Pete from Boom. I think that's about it.